Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Cajon City Council meeting. The meeting is called to order, and I'd like to ask for our city clerk to please call the roll.
All council members are present.
Would you all stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a brief moment of silence? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the February 22nd, 2022 meeting and the agenda of the March 8th, 2022 meeting in accordance with state law, council, and housing authority policy. We have two presentations on today's agenda. The first item, I'd like to invite Recreation Supervisor Heather Carter to tell us about this. Hello, Heather.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for letting me present to you today. And I am here to talk about the Parks and Recreation Department's annual Dance and Tumbling recital, which will be held on March 19th. That's next Saturday. And we'll have 3 shows at 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 5:30. So each spring, our dancers and tumblers of the Parks and Recreation Department get the opportunity to showcase their skills to our community. It's a huge part of our program, and we look forward to it every March. And the recital has been going on for over 50 years. It's really a long-standing tradition in our community. And it was originally, actually not even originally, but we're not sure where it originally was, so if anyone knows that, chime in. But it was for a long time held at the East County Performing Arts Center. And when that closed, we relocated to Greenfield Middle School, and they were really great hosts to us over the years. And then in 2020, recital was canceled I believe it was 3 days before the performances were to begin. And so it was a real bummer. All of the participants were pretty disappointed, and it was a hard time for everybody during that time. So in 2021, we decided we wanted to be able to hold the recital no matter what, one way or another. And so we came up with a few different plans. Things were rapidly changing, so we weren't sure what exactly we'd be able to do. And in the end, we ended up being able to do a virtual recital. And we did this performance at Ronald Reagan Community Center. We had groups come in one at a time and do their performance, but we had a professional videographer record them and then put together a special DVD for each of the participants. And our participants were just so happy we were able to provide this opportunity to them. It was the first thing that they had really been able to do in a long time, so it was very exciting. And this year, we get to hold the recital in person at the Magnolia. So this will be our first year back in that facility since it closed many years ago. We're so excited. We've been working with the Magnolia closely, and they've been very easy to work with and walk us through everything. It's been really great. A lot of our staff actually, when they were kids, performed at the Performing Arts Center, so they're super excited to be able to now choreograph the dances and have their classes perform here as well. And our themes for this year, our preschool theme is going to the zoo, so it's going to be super cute, a lot of animal costumes. And our big kid recital is Stars of the Future. And then a little more information about our recital. We do expect about 375 performers this year, so it's a pretty big group, and that will be over the course of 3 acts. And we have 39 routines ranging from ballet and tap to hip hop and tumbling. And so there's 6 styles of routines. And over the course of the 3 shows, we do expect about 1,200 audience members. And all of this is choreographed by 7 amazing instructors that we have. So a special shout out to them. Our tickets are currently on sale. We're doing ticket sales through Eventbrite. And also all performers will receive a free DVD of the recital. We started that tradition years ago, and it's really a treasured keepsake for the participants and their parents. And City Council, we do invite you to attend if you're available and looking for something to do on your Saturday night. There is a formal invitation that you will receive if you haven't received it yet. And I'm open for any questions.
Michelle, go ahead.
So I just want to tell you, I think 83 or 84, my daughter took dance classes from the rec center, and it was done at either Kennedy Park or Wells Park. Okay, I remember her taking the classes, but I don't remember where the performance was. But it's been going on for a really long time. So when you say 50 years, she's going to be 42 this year, so it's been around for a really long time.
Oh yeah, it's really a neat opportunity for, and I keep hearing parents come in and say, "Oh, I did this when I was a kid," and grandparents saying their kids did it. So it's really exciting.
Well, thank you very much. My granddaughter has also taken a hip-hop class some years ago. But you guys do a wonderful job, and I think it was a good presentation.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, just another personal story. My younger brother, performed and took classes at the East County Performing Arts Center. Now he's on Broadway.
Oh, wow. That's so
He's
cool.
been in West Side Story and a ton of different Broadway shows. So well done with this event. Do you expect to sell out?
I don't know that we'll sell out this year. We're still building back our program from being down from COVID and everything, but hopefully next year we'll get sold out.
Well, if you do sell out, we'll have to send a letter to Eddie Vedder telling him that we were able to sell out as well as he was.
Thanks.
What's the date of this again?
It'll be next Saturday, March 19th.
So a week from this coming Saturday?
Yes.
At what time?
Our preschool show is at 1 o'clock, and then 3 o'clock for Act A and 5:30 for Act B.
Thanks for doing it. Did you want to give a phone number or a website again for people that are looking on TV?
Yeah, they can call 619-441-1516 or go to elcajonrec.org.
Okay. Look forward to seeing you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Our next presentation is about human trafficking awareness, and I'd like to invite Monique Myers. She's with the Community Partnership Prosecutor of the San Diego County District Attorney's Office. And Monique?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm also presenting with Carolyn Matzker. She is the Chief of Sex Crimes and Human Trafficking. We're about to shift gears significantly from the recital that we just saw, which is adorable. So this will be a little bit more serious. We're excited to talk to you about human trafficking. I'm a community partnership prosecutor at the district attorney's office. My role is to go out in the community, learn about issues, and problem solve. And I'll let Carolyn introduce herself.
Okay.
Hi, thank you very much for having us here today. I am chief of our Sex Crimes and Human Trafficking Division in the DA's office. In that division, we prosecute human trafficking cases, adult sexual assaults, and delayed reporting child molest. That's the bulk of our cases. For this presentation on human trafficking for you. So what is human trafficking? A lot of you might know this, but I want to go into a little bit more detail. So human trafficking is divided into both labor trafficking and sex trafficking. Labor trafficking is where one person deprives or violates the personal liberty of another in order to obtain, and the key is forced labor or services. And deprivation of liberty can be shown through force, fraud, coercion, deceit, violence, or threats of injury. In our office, we don't see many cases that rise to the level of labor trafficking, but we see wage and hour violations and things like that. And our DA, Summer Steffen, just started the Workplace Justice Division, and they've been busy getting a lot of referrals in this area. Sex trafficking, for an adult victim to be a victim of sex trafficking, a person has to deprive that adult of the liberty of the adult in order to make the victim engage in commercial sexual activity or pornography. For minors to be sex trafficked, a person has to cause or attempt to cause a minor to engage in commercial sexual activity or pornography. For minors, because they are unable to consent legally to sex, there is no force, coercion, duress, or anything else that is required. In 2016, there was a study that was done in San Diego that measured the extent of gang involvement in sex trafficking in our county. And what they found is that 80% of the trafficking victims in our county are born here in the United States. So you can be born in the U.S., never leave the U.S., and be trafficked. They came from all backgrounds, all ethnicities, all races are touched. The average age of entry for a victim of trafficking is 16 years old in this study, and 97% of the victims they found in the study, by looking at old police reports and talking to prosecutors and law enforcement, 97% were female. What we're finding is that there's a much higher number of males who are being trafficked, but they just aren't coming forward. But we hear about it from groups that work with male victims, and so we're really making an effort to reach out to try to bring them in to report these crimes and to get them services. And our office just has a social media campaign that began to encourage male victims to come forward. The study also looked at the traffickers. 85% were found to be gang affiliated. Again, all ethnicities and races are represented. They found the average earnings were about $670,000 a year. This is an $810 million underground economy in San Diego County alone, and that was 2016. And that's why this is such a huge problem all across our county, across the country, and the world really is. It's a very lucrative business. So there's a number of risk factors that were found by the study and also in the literature. As you might expect, children who are runaways in the foster care system or homeless are at high risk for this. 90% of the victims had experienced some sort of abuse or neglect. Many were living in poverty, so they're susceptible to the charms of the traffickers. They have low self-esteem. That can be a risk factor. Being a victim of childhood sexual abuse or being developmentally delayed can also be a risk factor. The study looked at 20 high schools that were across our county and were representative of our county. And in 90% of them, they found confirmed cases of child sex trafficking. And the sex traffickers, as you would expect, they recruit where the teens hang out, where they congregate, in the malls, in the trolley and train stations, bus stops, house parties, parks, and around the schools. Also, there's some trafficking going on in tattoo parlors and on social media. That is a huge place of recruitment now. And during the pandemic, with so many more kids being online all the time, they were, just sort of sitting ducks for the recruiters.
So the big question is, how do they get recruited? And there are basically 3 styles of recruitment. The first one is called the Romeo trafficker, and that's about love. They use charm, flattery, gifts. It's the best partner that this person could have in a romantic sense. So what are things to look out for in this context? It would be falling in love too quickly, someone encouraging the teen to run away from home, and a big thing is promising a future, a better life with this other person, this partner. Another technique is a violent trafficker, which uses violence to force the person to participate in commercial sexual activity. This person will use violence at all ends and can use blackmail along the way. So we see that a lot in the context of social media and that online relationship involving nude photographs and things of that sort. Do what I say, or I'll post these photos online. Do what I say, or there's violence, that sort of thing. The other trafficker type is the CEO trafficker. This is the one promising the money. This is the aspiring model, the I'm going to make you famous, that sort of environment where they're going to be their agent and help them get out of whatever it is that they're in and promising a new life through a financial opportunity. So I will make you rich. You have what it takes. Let's just take some photographs And those photographs go from a traditional modeling type of photograph to involving more risque and ultimately nude photographs, and it can lead to what I previously described as the violent trafficker who now has this blackmail material and is able to exploit the youth with these nude photographs. So some things to look out for with the CEO trafficker include lots of cash. That promise of stardom is the big one, as well as what I was describing as nude photographs, but usually portrayed as like artistically nude photographs. So it's done for a bikini photo shoot that becomes ultimately more risque than that. Carolyn briefly talked about online grooming and how that's becoming something that we saw a lot of during the pandemic. The online groomer can present as that trusted peer, male or female, the same sex as the victim or not. Those conversations will lead to a level of intimacy and trust because they're behind the screen, and so they can open up more and get to know each other. Again, getting that victim to share personal information that might not be something they want shared with the public or with their family, as well as inappropriate photographs of themselves. And they will make ultimate arrangements to meet that person privately and then begin that trafficking type of relationship. During the course of that relationship, they will isolate the victim from their friends and family to create more of that dependency on one another, both physical and emotional. So these are some photographs of real cases that we've seen in our office of tattoos on different victims. These are what is commonly known as branding. This is when the trafficker has the victim tattoo themselves to illustrate that they are the property of the other person. This is the culmination of that relationship of now the trafficker, quote, owns the victim and literally is branding them like what was done on ranches with cattle. Other warning signs to look out for are an incredibly controlling partner, someone who appears fearful, anxious, depressed, reluctant to speak out. This branding tattoos. Unexplained injuries sometimes might present itself as domestic violence, but it's part of a greater violent scheme related to human trafficking. Unexplained cash, clothing, fancy things that maybe this person can't otherwise afford. Sudden drop in grades if they're in school, multiple cell phones, no identification, and not knowing their address. And that might come as a surprise as to why would they not know their address, but if they're being trafficked and moved from location to location, they're in one city to another city, from motel to motel. They don't have a fixed permanent address, and they don't know where they live. And they might not know where they actually are at that exact moment, and that's why they wouldn't know their address. So why is sex trafficking so widespread and so difficult to detect? Identifying victims is particularly challenging because a victim might not self-identify as a victim. They might be incredibly dedicated to their trafficker because of that emotional relationship that we just described. So in the course of isolating that person from their friends and family, the trafficker is brainwashing them to believe that this is their person and their whole life source, right? This is their future financially, their future emotionally. And so they are fully dedicated to that trafficker. So that was a lot of bad news, but there is good news about what's being done in the county, and I'll go through that quickly. So I worked very closely with the fire departments here in El Cajon as well as the rest of the county and created a human trafficking training for fire and EMS. So our first responders, both law enforcement as well as fire and EMS, have now been trained on what is human trafficking so they can work hand in hand with local law enforcement to report that crime. We also have the DA's office created the Safe Shelter Collaborative, and what that is a quick way for nonprofits that work with these victims to find them help, find them shelter specifically. One of the biggest issues that nonprofits face is someone comes forward, but where do we house this person? The Safe Shelter Collaborative allows think of it as like open table for housing. It is an online platform that allows them to access various available beds to quickly connect them with the housing that they need so that the service provider can move on and go do other things for that individual. The DA's office, as well as our partners with the Public Defender's Office and the court, created the RISE Court, which is the Resiliency is Strength Empowerment Court, which is meant for under 18-year-olds who are in the juvenile justice system. It's a special collaborative court specifically for victims of human trafficking. It is a court with a multi-agency approach to connect them with services to get them out and reunited with all the services that they need to fix those gaps that are otherwise in their life. There's also the Human Trafficking Task Force with the county, which has lots of different law enforcement agencies and prosecutorial agencies working together to have that across the county lens as opposed to just being in one city. Traffickers move around, and so law enforcement is working together to approach it that way as well. And then on the education front for schools, the DA's office with some nonprofits and a private corporation have come together to create the San Diego Trafficking Prevention Collective, which provides education for free for students and teachers through 3 different types of programs at the school level, with the thought that students will know what's going on in their friends' lives and can report that information much sooner than an adult. So a best friend might notice odd behavior from another friend quicker than a neighbor or a parent or a guardian would be able to see it. And so by empowering students, we can reduce human trafficking at that level when it's earlier on. Same with the teachers to make sure that they see our students, all day long, to make sure that they can really readily identify the signs of human trafficking. This is a free training for all schools across the San Diego County. But the biggest thing is that everyone who's listening online and in this room now knows what human trafficking is. And it's very much a see something, say something sort of model. Because human trafficking is so pervasive and in the shadows, we need everyone to report it if they see it. And there are lots of different ways to report. There's the Child Abuse Hotline, the National Trafficking Hotline, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, as well as just calling 911. Sometimes people don't feel comfortable calling 911 because they're not sure what's going on and they feel insecure about doing that. That's okay. There are other methods to do that. The National Trafficking Hotline, someone can text the words "be free" and report it that way. There's lots of different ways to get help, and so we would like to encourage that with the caveat, and I have it in yellow on the screen, because we do not want someone to just attempt to rescue another person. The average person is not in a position to rescue a victim of human trafficking. It's a very complicated situation, and so reporting it is the best thing that a person can do. When you attempt to rescue, you likely will be biting off much more than you can chew and can possibly put the person in a more dangerous situation than you could imagine. There's more resources available on the San Diego District Attorney website, which is sandiegoda.com. There's resources about all the various nonprofits in San Diego County that provide resources as well. I put the direct website as well as my contact information and Caroline's contact information if anyone has any additional information that they want. Those are some great resources.
Thanks. Nice presentation. Let me see if there's some questions for you. Questions? Phil?
Not a question, but just a thank you. And I want to let the public know how amazing Summer and Summer's office, your team has been. If the public doesn't know, Summer Steffen is a national expert on this. She gives, and her staff has a ton of credit for this as well. Our DA, Summer Steffen in San Diego County, presents as an expert to other DAs across the country. And the work that your office has done, Monique, I've met you a couple times. The work that you and Carolyn and your office has done to reach out to the community, to train average, whether it was police or fire or teachers or whoever, has been exceptional. It has been extraordinary. I've learned so much. Someone in your office, Cameron, Celeste, these little tips and tricks that teachers or friends, students can hear. Why does this kid have a hotel key card? That doesn't make sense. That's a sign that they could be that child could be being trafficked. And the outreach that you have done to the community has been amazing. So with all of those, awful things going on in this country, we're very blessed to have Summer and your team here helping and working to catch these criminals. So kudos and a thank you, a big one.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Monique. Nice to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah. Schools. What is your success rate in getting schools to have assemblies or say, come on in and talk to us? What's your success rate?
So it's actually a law right now that requires that there is human trafficking education in schools. And so they have to have some sort of human trafficking education as part of their health curriculum. So some schools are going on their own and getting their own human trafficking education program and enrolling that out. Others are going with our program. I can't speak to the number of schools specifically that are taking on our program. We did roll this out prior to that law taking effect. So the law happened a year after we rolled out our program. And we're hopeful, obviously we believe in our program, that's why we developed it. But we're hopeful that if they don't take our program, that they do implement some sort of human trafficking training education into the school. The bigger thing is not that they take our program, but rather that the information get out to the students. So they are required to have it at this point.
Okay, that's good to know. The mayor and I attended a fentanyl seminar last Friday, and we found out that schools are not adopting or embracing assemblies about fentanyl because there's a stigma associated with, well, that doesn't happen in my school. And so I hope that's not happening with the topic of human trafficking as well. It sounds like it's okay.
I can tell you anecdotally that that statement does happen when it comes to human trafficking education, not necessarily, I'm not saying specifically for schools, but in general. That idea that this doesn't happen in my neighborhood is a pervasive idea throughout the county and everywhere. I think it's probably because it's a topic that no one likes to admit might be happening in their own backyard. That's an ugly realization to look inward and think that. But through the studies that we have done, through our cases, we know that it's happening in all types of neighborhoods. There isn't a neighborhood that's not been affected by it. It's ubiquitous. It's an equal opportunity type of crime in the same sense like drugs and domestic violence, where neighborhood, financial background, those things don't play a role in whether or not it's going to come to that community.
Do you reach out to the Hotel Motel Association in San Diego? Are they trained as well?
Yes,
Okay.
they are. We have a specific program for that as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anybody else? Is there anything the city that can do to help you that we're not doing?
Well, I mean, we're just grateful that you have us here today to provide information to people who are watching online and also to yourselves. We are happy to give training anywhere at any time to anybody in the city or anybody across the county, and we're always willing to do that. So if there's anybody who would like additional training, you've got our information up here, and we'd ask that you reach out to us, and we'll provide training.
Okay, well, I'm sure that our police chief and our fire chief and our city manager all are happy to hear about that, and hopefully we'll coordinate more to try to put a dent in some of this most heinous of crimes.
Yeah, and anyone in the community can reach out. It doesn't have to be a police chief or a fire chief. Anyone can reach out. If there's a mom group or a church group, anyone, we'd be happy to present.
Well, great. So just for the record, we have this put down on the public access TV. If you want to give a phone number or a website that you can people can call if they need to.
Sure, I can give you my cell phone number is 619-753-5556. And then my email address is Monique, MONIQUE, period, Myers, MYERS, SDCDA.org.
Thanks. I do appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Before we move on, I was reminded by these two women from the district attorney's office that came by that today is International Women's Day. And I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge all the fine women we have working on staff, and especially Michelle Mitchell, who's our colleague here. So I'd like to acknowledge you. All right. Would you like to give a speech, Michelle, on behalf of women throughout the world?
I just want to say, girl power, get out there. Do your thing, women. We have an incredible amount of strength inside of us. Excuse me. We give birth, we raise children, we raise families, we raise animals, and we do it with a lot of strength and passion. And so I ask all of you women to be proud to be a woman and get out there and do it, whether it's in science, in law, in politics, or just being a good woman. and you can do it.
All right. Moving on, but real quickly, do we have some students here today? Yeah? Where are you all from? Valhalla. Are you going to stay for the whole meeting? All 9 hours? Good. We'll be done. We'll be done pretty quick. All right. Agenda changes. Staff, do you have any agenda changes?
No, sir, no changes to the agenda.
Council members? All right. Then we're on the consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you wish to pull any of the consent items? Staff?
No, sir.
I'll make a motion then to approve the consent items.
Second.
Please vote. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we vote, Angela, do we have any speaker cards for consent items?
Thank you, sir. There are no speaker cards.
All right. Do we need another vote, or can you? Okay.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Thank you. That brings us to public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions, and an item may be placed on a future agenda. Angela, do we have any speaker cards for this?
We have no speakers, sir.
Okay. So there are no public comments. That brings us then to written communications, and there are no written communications. We have 3 administrative reports on today's agenda. Item 6 is an update on the Heartland and Fire Rescue Administrative Offices, and I'll ask staff to please introduce this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. One of our engineers from Public Works, Sanan Kachi, will be presenting this item.
Hello, welcome.
Mr. Mayor.
Good, thanks.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, and City staff. I'm Sanan Kachi of the Public Works Department, and I'd like to provide you an update today on the Heartland Fire and Rescue Administrative Offices project. Our project manager is Mr. Paul Romero. He went on paternity leave just yesterday, so I'm filling in today for all the work he's been doing on this project. So today's council meeting features multiple actions related to this project, one of them being an appropriation of additional funds. So we felt it would be best to provide you with all the project details and answer any questions that you may have after this presentation. So Heartland Fire and Rescue Management, such as Fire Chief Sweeney and several division chiefs, currently work out of Fire Station 6 on Lexington Avenue, just a few blocks away. They share this building with regular fire station crews and Heartland Communications Facility Authority, which I'll refer to as HCFA. They're a key component of this project. They operate a significant emergency dispatch center from this location. They have a need to expand their operation and have looked at the possibility of even vacating the station. Instead, Heartland Fire Management will join their counterparts in the Public Safety Center or the Police Department just next door. This move allows both fire and police management staff to be located in the same building, while also allowing HCFA to grow and renew and extend their lease agreement with the city. Now we'll discuss some of the project components. There's currently 1,842 square foot space on the 3rd floor of the Public Safety Center. With the help of a licensed architect and input from Heartland Fire personnel, this floor plan was developed up on the screen. It includes a reception area, 7 fully furnished offices, and a conference room. Essentially, we have an empty shell, and the project will construct new metal stud walls, new drop ceiling, all electrical work, including new lighting, reworked ventilation, finished materials, and all final furnishings such as desks, hardware, chairs. So the next few slides are just some renderings created by our furniture consultant, and looking at the flooring in this is the reception area. The flooring selected here is a luxury vinyl tile, which mimics wood planks. The color you see there is a weathered driftwood. It's really easy to clean, very durable. This is the copy and storage area just across from the reception. Here you see one of the division chief offices or analysts. There's 6 of those. All furniture is provided by Steelcase, which has been standardized amongst all city facilities. Here you see the chief's office, a little bit larger. The floor treatment is carpet tiles, which we've had a lot of success with at various facilities to date. And then finally, the conference room. They have digital boards and sliding whiteboards. So this brings us to the current project budget and timeline. As approved by the City Council, the project budget stands at $370,000. $320,000 of that is dedicated to the improvements that we've just described, with the remainder covering architect fees and other soft costs on the project. After completing the design and construction documents last summer, the city bid the project in September and received a total of 5 bids ranging from $423,000 all the way up to $494,000. The lowest responsible bid was $475,000. So staff recommended rejection of all bids in order to reevaluate, re-advertise the project with revised construction documents. Following that, a total of 9 bids were then received last month, ranging from $398,000 to $576,000. The lowest responsible bid in this case was $444,000, so we did see a little bit of a decrease there. So this brings us to today's request to add $220,000 of capital improvement fund to the project in order to facilitate the relocation of Heartland Fire and Management and renew the city's lease with HCFA, who's currently at Fire Station 6. They would grow a bit and take the space that the chief and his staff would be leaving. So the amount of $220,000 covers the increased construction costs that we're seeing and also provides a contingency for the project. Okay, and with that, I'll take any questions that you may have.
Let me see if there's any questions.
So the $220,000, that's to cover, can you tell me that again, please?
So we purely construction costs, and we add in a 20% contingency. So we have $320,000 approximately for construction today. The added amount would go directly into the construction dollar fund.
Okay, and is that because of material costs? I know that wood has gone up and like.
So we finished our design last summer, and that put us bidding late summer in September. So we definitely experienced increased costs due to kind of the economic crisis. But I won't sugarcoat it. The design on paper dictates the bid prices the most. And some of these facilities projects are a little more difficult to determine what the outcome will be from a cost standpoint. We have to consider prevailing wage. Each laborer from the contractor, in this case, receives a background check to work inside the police department on this project. So all of those kind of factor in to some of the increased costs. But definitely some increased costs due to the kind of the material lead times and crisis going on.
And this will cover subcontractors?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'll chime in. The other thing this project allows us to do is to expand the area that we're currently leasing out to Heartland Communications. So we currently have a pretty small envelope that we lease to them in the basement. They'll actually expand to both. They'll continue to lease the basement, but they'll also lease the upper stairs area where the chief's office currently is, which will generate additional revenue to the city, and that goes into our general fund.
Speaking of lease sharing, so does the JPA then also share in the costs of the administrative part of the Public Safety Center? Does La Mesa and Lemon Grove contribute to the office costs of space in the new public safety?
No, because each of our cities have office space, so as part of the JPA, we all contribute our own costs to maintain our own physical buildings.
Okay. So the budget's $590, but the bid award was $444. I'm trying to figure out what that $150,000 difference is.
So some of the soft costs are loaded in there too, such as the architect fees and staff time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 590 is...
We don't expect to reach that number, but we also don't want to end up in the same boat.
Okay. Good.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. It's a good presentation. I appreciate you coming. Angela, any speaker cards on this item?
We have no cards, sir.
All right. Leave it to council. Looking for a motion.
Yeah, I'll move to authorize the appropriation of fund equity and transfer of $220,364 in the Capital City Improvement Program Fund. Can I do one motion? Yep. And appropriate $220,364 of additional funding in the Heartland Fire Administrative Offices project.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Thank you. Item 7 is a legislative update, and I'll ask our Assistant City Manager to introduce this item. Vince?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Please don't let the shortness of the report fool you. It's not a good one, but last year's wasn't great either, and we will expand upon this as the session continues. I want to take this opportunity to go over just a few of the ones that we're concerned about, and I'm currently tracking several others which will be added to future reports, and of course I'll provide periodic updates. The first one on the list is AB 292, which was signed into law as the session started. This is expanding the credit for good behavior and eventual release of violent offenders who commit or are incarcerated for rape, murder, robbery, kidnapping, and crimes against children. Under the old law, you would get 1 day off your sentence for 5 days of good behavior. This is a 1-for-1 now. So essentially, if you're sentenced to 10 years, you'll serve 5 instead of serving 8. So this, again, is moving towards the belief among the majority party that incarceration is not an effective deterrent to crime. This has been a long-standing policy of that political party. So that's law at this point. The second one I want to bring to your attention is AB 989. This is inactive, but it could reemerge as the session goes on. It's a 2-year bill, so it's called a 2-year bill. We thought it was going to go away last year. It did not. It just wasn't acted on last year. But this is the one that creates the statewide board that can overrule your decision on a housing project. So we really want to keep an eye on this, because if it does become active again and starts to move through committees, it has significant ramifications for local control of land use decisions. AB 1599 has got many authors. Essentially, the entire Republican caucus is a co-sponsor of this, and it proposes a repeal of Proposition 47. You'll recall that Prop 47, among other things, raised, I should say, the misdemeanor amount from $400 to $950 for shoplifting, and did a number of other things. The thing with this bill is that if it passes, it's all that means is it goes on to the ballot for election. So what is likely to happen, and what I've been told by the League of California Cities, is that this is not going to go anywhere, because the party in the majority does not want the public to vote on this. So you can't pass this piece of legislation which moves it onto the ballot. So the only way we're looking at a repeal of Prop 47 really is through the initiative process, through the signatures gathered by the public to put it on the ballot, because I don't believe that the party in control at this point is going to let anything come out of the legislature that looks at revising or repealing Prop 47. So I don't harbor a lot of hope for AB 1599. AB 1603 is actually proposed by a Democrat, surprisingly enough, and places before the voters, again, very similar to the last one, the reduction in the threshold amount for shoplifting from $950, which was set by Prop 47, back down to $400. Very surprising, probably not going to go anywhere, but it is in the committee process right now. ACA 1 is also a Democratic proposed bill that places before the voters a partial repeal of Prop 13. Those of you who remember what Prop 13 is back from the 70s, of the Jarvis-Gann initiative, places the maximum amount on property taxes at 1% with some minor adjustments for schools and things like that. This allows a city or county to levy an ad valorem tax to service bonded indebtedness for public infrastructure or affordable housing with a 55% approval as opposed to the 2/3 required. So it's starting. This was expected several years ago. We heard that the majority party was going to try and play with Prop 13. This is the first effort to do so. Moving on to the second page of the report, just a couple I want to point out there. The SB 81, which was signed by the governor, this allows, actually doesn't allow, I should change that. It requires judges to give great weight in dismissing the sentencing enhancement. And a sentencing enhancement is additional time onto a sentence for certain things that were determined as part of the process to convict someone. And so if a judge, if the defendant can demonstrate through the process that they have mental illness, childhood trauma, or the firearm was broken, or any sort, or the sentence has any discriminatory racial impact, the judge can and is required to eliminate the sentencing enhancement. Okay, so this is another one that again goes against the whole incarceration philosophy. The last one I'll point, well, let me do two more. SB 519, this is the legalization of the possession, obtaining, giving away, or transportation of hallucinogenic drugs, including LSD, aka acid, psychedelic mushrooms, and MDMA, which is also known as ecstasy or Molly. So this actually passed in the Senate. It is in the state assembly. I really feel that the only hope for this one would be a push in the governor's office. And the reason why I say that is the governor has designs on a presidential run in his party, and I don't think he wants to be affiliated with the legalization of hallucinogenic drugs. So that's just a guess on my part, but I don't think it's going to stop in the assembly. So I think it will reach the governor's desk at some point. And then lastly, the last one I'll talk about is an initiative. It's called the Taxpayer Protection Government Accountability Act. It's a ballot initiative which again puts restrictions on how much local governments can charge in terms of franchise fees for the various utilities that we negotiate with. This would be utility companies, garbage companies, and things like that. And so it's putting a limit, restrictions on how we would negotiate those. So there are other factors in this initiative, but that's the major one that affects our jobs here today. So again, I will be adding to this as future legislative bills come forward and providing periodic updates. But I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any questions? Phil?
You might not know the answer, but AB 481. The League of Cities had a presentation on it, and local agencies, we would have to maintain a policy relating to the purchase of the use of military vehicles.
Yes.
They classify drones as a military vehicle, and I don't know if you had any insight into why on earth. I mean, drones are recreation at this point, and they're used in surveying streets and buildings, and so I don't know if you had any insight as to why the Democratic colleagues up in Sacramento thought to classify a drone as a military vehicle.
Not specific insight, of course. That one is signed by the governor, so it's law.
Right.
And we are in the process of preparing our report, and you would have to adopt that report each and every year. Our program will be presented before you each and every year for validation, if you will. The only thing I can offer in terms of your comment is that drones are a very large category of vehicles. And, you talk about military drones that carry weaponry, very large, almost the size of small airplanes, all the way down to the recreational drones. Oftentimes what we're finding in the way these bills are written is that they don't really dive into the details of what they're talking about. And this may be one of those examples that drones are a very large category. They only find out that they should have clarified their language after the thing becomes law. So that's my guess on this.
Thanks, Vince.
Yeah, allowing the sale or giving away of hallucinogenics, in my mind, is really bad. Would it be helpful if the city council sent a letter to the governor?
I would agree with that. I would be happy to draft that letter for either the mayor's signature or the entire council's signature. I think there's value in that.
Do we need to vote on that? Then I'll make that a motion.
If I could put you off to the end and then revisit that, so we can go ahead and get public comment and.
Okay.
Yeah. Are there any speaker cards on this item?
No speaker card, sir.
Okay, great. So, Counselor, do you need a vote on also accepting the report or just on the letter?
Just the letter would be the only action taken.
All right, there's a motion on the table and a second. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right. Thank you, Vince, for the report.
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, are you looking for the letter to be signed by all council members or just yourself?
Is it okay if it's just me, or do you all want to get involved? I'll do it for us.
Okay, we'll do.
Thanks. Okay, item 7 is already done. Okay. So the last administrative report, item 8, is a side letter agreement between the city and the El Cajon Police Officers Association. I'll ask our city manager to tell us all about this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The purpose of this agenda item is to present a side letter to the existing memorandum of understanding between the city of El Cajon and the El Cajon Police Officers Association. This labor agreement was entered into in 2019 and extends through 2024. The MOU did not contemplate the high number of lateral transferred officers that we'd be experiencing that we have in the last few months, and as such, the City Council is being asked to consider this side letter as part of, or that's included in the agenda packet. What this side letter specifically does is remove some delays in which the city pays those that have post and other educational credentialing to currently, if someone were to transfer and they have all the educational are eligible for educational incentives, we require them to wait 1 full year before receiving those. This side letter would remove that language and allow the city to pay for those incentives immediately as long as they meet the other conditions of having worked for another California agency for at least 24 months prior to coming to the city of El Cajon. We think that this is a way that we can help incentivize additional recruitments and also ensure that those that we've hired recently know that we appreciate the value that they add to the city. Staff can answer any questions, and if there are no questions, staff would recommend that the council adopt the resolution which authorizes the city manager to execute the side letter.
All right, thanks, Graham. Questions? Angela, any speaker cards?
No speaker card, sir.
All right, then I'm looking for a motion.
Move to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
There are no commission reports on today's agenda. Item 9 is my activities report. Councilmember Goebel, do you have anything on activities reports?
As reported with a comment on the emergency sleeping cabins at Meridian Baptist Church are just about ready to be put up. Past couple of Saturdays, I was participated with the volunteers from Amicus. 5 kits have been built, and the first sample cabin went up on Saturday, and so we're looking at 5 more to be the barn raised on Saturday the 19th all day long.
Thanks, Chief. That's great. Great news. Gary?
As reported, but I did have something I wanted to mention. I just wanted to congratulate city manager and staff for doing such a great job on the video explaining that the homeless camp on Magnolia Avenue is not in the city of El Cajon. I think the new sign looks fantastic. The video is great, and the public needs to know who to call, which is the County of San Diego.
Agreed. Thank you. Phil? Michelle?
As reported.
Okay. Kids, it's almost over. There are no joint council reports and no general information item on today's agenda. Item 14 is the introduction of an ordinance addressing the use of electronic signatures by the city of El Cajon. And I'll ask the city clerk to read the title, but first, Angela, are there any speaker cards for this item?
We have no speaker cards.
All right, would you then please read the title?
An ordinance adding Chapter 2.50 to Title 2 of the El Cajon Municipal Code, authorizing the use of electronic and digital signatures.
Okay, great. Council, any questions about that? Any speaker cards on this?
No cards, sir.
I'm looking for a motion. Second. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right. There are no second readings of ordinances on today's agenda, and that brings us to closed session. The city attorney will recite the title and lead us into the closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and City Council will be meeting in closed session on one item. It's a conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. The property is 31.7 acres of a vacant site at the northwest corner of Weld Boulevard and Cuyamaca Street. The negotiating parties are Chestnut Properties LLC, SGC LMC-Weld Investment Company LP, and the city negotiators are the city manager, the assistant city manager, and the city attorney. Under negotiation of price and terms for the acquisition of a possible acquisition of a leasehold interest with a new lease back to the negotiating parties.
They're going to stay around for autographs. Phil's pen was ready. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back from closed session, and we will let our city attorney report on the happenings thereof.
Thank you, Mayor. The Mayor and City Council met in closed session for discussion with negotiators on a possible real property acquisition of a leasehold interest and then a subsequent lease back. There was no action taken on this item today.
Sure. Pass it to you. I'll pass it to you. Before we close the meeting, I'd like to pass it on to Councilmember Kendrick for.
Yeah, I'd like to close the meeting in the honor of the defenders of the people of Ukraine.
You have some connection to that, right? Some family connection?
I got some friends. My mom was living in Czechoslovakia when Hitler came in, rolled over there, and abused them. And then she was living in Czechoslovakia when the Russians came in and rolled over and abused them. And so she told me all sorts of stories about that, and essentially the same thing is happening right now.
Yeah, well, that's a nice sentiment. Thank you. All right, this